Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about the 9 books that I read in the month of January. Okay, apologies for the lighting. It is not that late in the day, but it's extremely gloomy and dark outside, so I've had to turn on lots of lights. Hopefully it's okay, but you know what, even if it's not perfect, this is me trying to stay accountable with posting, so that's that. Okay, so let's chat about the 9 books that I read in the month of January. Pretty strong start for the year. So the very first book that I finished was Margot's Got Money Troubles by Rufi Thorpe. This one has been making its rounds on social media, and I gotta say it was actually quite good. I did start reading this in 2025, I believe, in the fall, and I did put it down halfway through. It kind of got like a little bit meh for me halfway through, but then I picked it up again in January and I binged the second half. It was great. If you haven't heard about this one, I believe it's been optioned now for a movie or a TV show. It's been picked up, but we follow our main character, Margot. Margot is in university, college. She's a student, and she finds herself impregnated by one of her professors. And what really follows is sort of her coming of age, in a sense, finding her own comfort in her own skin and really navigating this like unplanned motherhood, and her kind of dabble into OnlyFans account that she needs to create to kind of make money because she doesn't have any money, of course. So this was very, very original. This was a very good story. I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of heavy themes. So there's like a lot of like comedic relief in this, which I really enjoyed. You really get to see like her internal dialogue, and then also these like little fun escapades that she like gets up to with like her OnlyFans accounts. There is certainly an angle here of ethics and morality, of sex work, and I thought this was really, really well done. It was really great, a really good read. Definitely got a bit meh in the middle for me, but I did end up giving this like 4.25 stars, which I thought was really good. And I'm looking forward to the movie or the TV show when it comes out. Okay, so this one I'm a little bit scared to share my rating. I ended up reading Broken Country by Leslie Clare Hall in January as well. And I thought it was just okay. I know people have been really raving about this book. Everyone online is really, really loving it. Unfortunately for me, it was kind of predictable. It was kind of slow, very atmospheric for sure. I really love that about this book, is you get so much atmosphere, but for me, it just like, it missed the mark. This book is about our main character, Beth, who lives on a farm with her husband, Frank. And so we've got like dual timelines here. You've got Beth in the present day now, and then Beth, whatever, like 15-20 years ago, with who she felt was the love of her life, which is not her now husband, Frank. So the person that she really thought that she was going to end up with ends up coming back into her town, and there's a murder, and so there's that suspense element to it too, but it's not a thriller. There's definitely a mystery in here, which is who got shot, because throughout the book you get the trial that's also simultaneously happening. You get the present day timeline, and then you get the past timeline. So there is the mystery element to it. Who did it? Who died? Because you don't find that out till later on either. But I found for me this book was maybe trying to do maybe too much. It was a good literary fiction, but it was a bit underwhelming for me at times, which is, I know, very different than other people's opinions on here. I will say, even though I find this sometimes categorized as a like mystery thriller, I will say it reads more like lit fic than it does mystery thriller. It was okay. I ended up giving it 4 stars, which is still actually a really high rating because it was very atmospheric and it was a nice story, but it definitely wasn't like a wow book for me like it was for a lot of people online. But you know, if you can get it from the library, I thought it was a good book. It's well done. Okay, up next I read which I already know is going to be my favorite books of the year. Okay, and surprise, surprise, it's by no one other than Frederick Bachman. So I read My Friends by Frederick Bachman, and this book, I gave it 6 out of 5 stars. Okay, this is a 6-star book. It's really chunky, okay, and I was kind of apprehensive about starting it because I was a bit intimidated by the size of it. It's also like bigger pages and it's a thick book. But oh my gosh, everything you've been hearing about this book is accurate. This is a lovely, lovely book. Okay, let me tell you what the book is about. So we follow our main character, Louisa, who's just turning 18. Like she's on the cusp of turning 18 when the book starts. She has bounced around from orphanage to orphanage. She's seen some really difficult stuff in her life as a young woman. But one thing that's always gotten her through her whole life and all the hardships she's experienced is this painting that is world famous. So I guess think of like maybe modern day Mona Lisa. That's kind of how I was comparing it in my head. So like a really beautiful painting. It's world renowned. It's of three friends sitting on a pier at the sea. And I think the painting is called The One at the Sea or The One on the Sea, something like that. So the book starts with her going to a museum to see the painting. And then from there, that's where like our story unravels. She's definitely like obsessed with this painting. She's determined to find out who these three people are in the painting. And she runs into somebody that night who becomes a really big part of her life and her story. I don't want to say too much. Do try to go into this as blind as possible. Because it's Frederick Bachman, you know, this book is so full of heart and grit. I definitely sobbed in this book. I laughed. All the emotions came up here. You definitely have this, like, again, dual timeline. You have Louisa's perspective, and then you have another character's perspective who's in the past. I don't want to say who, how, what, because I do think going blind into this would be really helpful, but it was great. It was great. I definitely like highlighted quite a bit of stuff like in here. And you know, these are non-spoiler quotes, but it's just Frederick Bachman has such a beautiful way of writing, right? He'll take like the simplest words, simplest language, and he has this like poetic way of getting his message across. Here he's talking about art, and the quote says, "Art is a nakedness. You have to be free to decide when you're comfortable with it and with whom." And I thought that was lovely. That was great. That really hit the mark for me. Let me read you another one of my favorite quotes. This is also like a great quote. So, quote is, "It's strange, the things you remember from your childhood, but perhaps what you forget is even stranger." Another quote that I really enjoyed was, "Human beings are capable of such unbelievable stupidity. We speak of the birth of a child as a miracle, but really the miracle is everything that comes after." I love this book. I thought it was great. I definitely will be recommending it to everybody in my life. It is a heavier book, of course, like it did take me time to get through this for sure, but I am so excited to see what Frederick Bachman like writes next. I'm still working through his backlist, but that was that. First 6-star of the year, definitely gonna be on my top reads of the year list. Okay, after that, I read A Queen's Match by Katharine McGee. I really like Katharine McGee. I've been reading her for years. I remember a decade ago, I read The Thousandth Floor by her. She writes these like YA books, and she's probably the only YA author that I'll still kind of listen to. And the YA doesn't read as juvenile. It's very like older youth YA. Almost like, I'm even gonna say like, it's young adult, but like pretty mature young adult. This Queen's Match is second one to the Queen's Duet series. This is a historical fiction, follows 3 popular female characters from history. So we have got in the first one, which is called The Queen's Game, we have 19th century Europe and Victorian era. And we have got Alex of Hesse, who was Queen Victoria's favorite granddaughter. We've got Helene d'Orléans, which was she was a daughter of the exiled king of France. And then we have got May of Teck, who is another popular historical figure. So I love historical fiction. I love British history, and I love history around the monarchy. And this was great. So you kind of follow these 3 women, these 3 young women, as they're kind of navigating their love life in the beginning, and the second one continues. So this was a duology, and the second one completes it. Obviously, because it's history, you know what happened and who ended up with whom and whatnot, and how their lives turned out. But I really enjoyed this perspective because all 3 of them are like friends, rivals, in the same social circle, and it was just so fascinating to read. I gave this one like 4 stars. If you're craving sort of like a royal story and want to binge something like that, I think you would really enjoy this duology. Okay, next up, another 5-star. So I read Good Dirt by Charmaine Wilkerson. She's the same one who wrote Black Cake that I really enjoyed last year. And I was not apprehensive, but I was a bit like, I don't know if I'm really gonna like this. I kept putting off this book for like all of last year, and then I picked it up in January, and I absolutely loved it. 5 out of 5 stars, just like I gave Black Cake 5 out of 5. Now, if you are not familiar with her work, she really places an object at the center of a story. So in Black Cake, it was black cake, which is a recipe for a cake. And then in this one, it follows this ancestral jar. I really like her personification of these objects and how she makes them the center of the story, and the characters and the plot is really tied around that. I love her writing. It is so beautiful. This one in particular, Good Dirt, we follow an African American family in the US, their ancestral heirloom jar that's made out of dirt, and a tragedy that happens. That's all referred to over and over again in the book. I don't want to say too much about what the tragedy is, but I guess like a bit about the family. It's a very influential Black family. They are like landowners and they're very powerful people. And I like the added layer in this book of other folks being surprised that a Black family can be so influential and powerful. I think this book definitely gets people to check their biases too, which I love it when books do that. And you see the timeline also jump in the story. So you've got the daughter from the family as an adult jumps to some of the flashbacks that she has about the tragedy that happens around the jar. And then you have another timeline of an enslaved person who's one of their ancestors hundreds of years ago, and their perspective and their journey and how they are tied to this jar. It might seem a little bit confusing when I explain it like this, but again, like the jar is at the center and this like a web, like this intricate web of lives and stories across generations. And I absolutely love books like that. A really big piece here too was how someone can continue to be impacted by tragedy and trauma for the rest of their lives. And I thought this book did a really good portrayal of that, because we really see our main character, who's a daughter in the family, like really go through that. But it's still like a very resilient story. Like her other book, this one has also like a mystery element to it. Again, it's not a thriller, but there is a mystery, but it is mainly a lit fic. I would not read this for the mystery, but the mystery is definitely like a nice element to have, but it's definitely literary fiction. You know, now that I'm recording this, I'm really realizing how many awesome books I read in January. And I reread one of my favorite books of all time, which was Independence by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. She is one of my favorite authors. I have like back here, I have everything by her. Well, not everything. There's a couple of her books that I haven't read, but this is her latest book. I believe it came out 3 years ago. And I talked about it on this channel too. It was one of my first videos 3 years ago. I got it the day it came out and I finished it in 24 hours. This time I proposed it to my book club and they decided to read it. And most people really loved it, it's so gratifying, you know, when you recommend a book and other people like it. But I really love this book. If you haven't heard of this book, this is a historical fiction. We have a coming of age story of these 3 sisters who are Bengali and who live in India, and this is now like the pre-partition time, pre-partition and the cusp of partition. So they're coming of age really as the country is also going through a huge transition of partition. The prose is beautiful, the setting is amazing, the characters are lovable. You also hate some characters a lot. Very nuanced, layered story. The second half definitely is much faster than the first half. There's a lot of build-up. The second half, you kind of fly through it. And I couldn't put this book down. It's like how colonization and rebellion intersects in the lives of these 3 women who are coming to age and finding their own autonomy in the world, and how that is paralleled with the country as a whole. Finding autonomy in the world. So I thought it was beautiful. There's obviously some parts to this book that are triggering and overwhelming and upsetting, but you know, don't let that deter you. And for historical fiction, like it is actually quite short. Usually historical fictions are chunky. This one is just under 300 pages. So it's very, very, very doable. Okay, so the next book I read, which is also really popular online, but I didn't love it so much, was None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. This kind of fell a little flat for me. I ended up giving this 3.75 stars. Now, what I really liked about this book was that it started off really strong. We have good pace and we have a really good plot, essentially. Like, it's a cool idea for sure. Where it fell flat for me was The big plot reveal at the end was kind of predictable for me. It wasn't as big. I think I was waiting for something like bigger to come along. And honestly, if thrillers are predictable for me, I think that's still okay. I would really still like to enjoy the ride. With this one, I didn't enjoy the ride. I thought it was just okay. If you're not familiar with this, we have our main character, Alex Summers. Alex Summers, she is a podcaster, and on her 45th birthday, she meets the other main character, Josie Fair, who claims she also has the exact same birthday, is the exact same age, and they decide to do a podcast together. Josie's life, of course, is very weird, but also compelling. So Alex Summer, who's doing the podcast, can't help but get wrapped up in it. Again, I think some elements of it were unique, but I was waiting for more. I was hoping for more, and that just didn't happen. Okay, after finishing that book, at this point in the month, I was feeling a little bit like I was in a slump. So I picked up Do Not Disturb by Frida McFadden. I picked this one up specifically because I had heard that this is one of her better ones because it's her older book and it's not as flat as some of her newer ones. And I agree with that sentiment. I ended up giving this book 3.75 stars. It was okay. It was fun to read. It basically follows a main character who is escaping from something, and she decides to stay in this hotel or motel for the night where she gets trapped because of a huge snowstorm. And then there's weird characters in this motel. Somebody was murdered in this motel a while ago. There's the wife of the motel owner who just sits there and watches people, is weird. So there's definitely lots of plot twists, good atmosphere. It was good. I think it did the job. It helped me get out of a reading slump. I wasn't annoyed because unfortunately with some of the newer Frida McFaddens, I've just been oh, this is so lame. But this one was not lame. I actually pretty enjoyed it. So did its job. Okay, and the last book that I finished in the month of January was one of my most anticipated reads for the year. This is How to Commit a Post-Colonial Murder by Nina McConaughey. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This book was given to me as an e-arc by Ned Galley, so thank you so much for Ned Galley. I'm so happy sometimes I get to read cool books from there. I am planning on buying this one though when it comes out. Overall, I end up giving this book 4 stars. Now, I'll talk about what I really liked about it and what I didn't like so much about it. I definitely had high hopes going into this. The cover, the title, the premise all spoke to me. The premise is basically that we're following these 2 sisters who are in this Indian American family, and the setting is 1980s, and I forget where, I believe Utah, if I'm not wrong. And one day these 2 sisters decide that the uncle that they live with has to die. Now, you don't understand why yet, till I think halfway in the book, why he has to die, what kind of happened, but they decide that, okay, this guy has to die. And they blame this act of killing him on the British. Hence the title Post-Colonial. The book definitely ties in this family's life, their everyday struggles, their narratives, and how they're tied to colonialism and what the country and the culture experienced during the colonial period, and how the family still continues to carry that into every day. What I really liked about it was there was a lot of female rage in this. I usually like female rage types of books. I personally don't think this book is for everyone, mainly because it reads more like a compilation of different essays. Reads less like a cohesive book with this cohesive plot, and more just an essay here and there. Most of the book is from the perspective of the younger sister Georgie, and each chapter, which to me in my mind was an essay, could be from the present day, could be from a few years ago. You kind of don't know what you're getting till you're in it, which is not, I guess, a bad thing, but I think that took away from how cohesive the book could have been, in my opinion. What I really liked about it was how this book really got me thinking about split identities, split cultural identities, how we reconcile that, cultural trauma. There is some sexual trauma in this book, so, trigger warning, but it really got me thinking about all these topics. Oh, and how all of that also gets layered with family dynamics. I still thought it was a good read. I gave it 4 stars. I wish it was a bit longer for sure, because I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. It was only 224 pages and I was expecting a bit more, but nonetheless, I enjoyed it. I will be getting a physical copy when it comes out, and I was still happy that I read it. Disappointed in some ways, but I thought it was a very cool I thought it was a very unique sort of a perspective, and like it just like hooks you in with that synopsis that these two sisters decide their uncle needs to die and they blame the British for it. Like it was a very good hook, good marketing. Okay, folks, that's all. Those are all the books I read in the month of January. Let me know if any of these speak to you. Let me know what you read and what was like your top read of January, because you know my TBR is always ever growing. I'm always looking for more to add, and I will see you with my next video. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.